Welcome back to Get a Grip on Rebates. Yeah, I don't know. Juan Carlos is going to come out in a second here before we get to it because Greg, myself, John, and Juan Carlos are going to get together to get the rebate show started off this year. It's going to be super fun. But before we get into that, we got to go to the craziest people in lighting. That's TCPI, Greg.com.
That's right. Hey, you're talking rebates. That's what we're talking today. They have everything you need. All rebatable. They know how to work the game. They know how to do it. You need a rebated project, TCP's got it for you.
TCPI.com. What's happening? John Wilson, Juan Carlos Blacker, and Greg Ehrich. So listen, we wanted this could be the most important show on Lights Head Mag for 2021. And the reason why is that we're in the middle of a pandemic. People aren't really freaked out anymore. They're kind of like, well, I want to go back to work. I want to get going again. And so they want to know what's happening with rebates, Greg, and they want to figure it all out. So that's why the rebate show is so important in 2021. So I'll throw it over to you, Greg. What's happening? That's my start off. What's happening with you?
Well, started off with, this is something that's been around for a long time, and want to get Juan Carlos and John's opinion on this. And you, Mike, and me, we'll all talk. But it's with rebate programs, and I'm not talking just any one particular. You guys might think I'm talking about the one that I deal with the most, but I'm not. I'm talking about all rebate programs. I've looked at a lot of them. What is with all the weird rebate stipulations? Let me tell you what I mean by that. I got a list of them here. But here's an example of one that just happened to me yesterday. Somebody comes to me and says, okay, you're going to do a par 38 screw-in. In order for that to qualify for a prescriptive, you need it to have a mogul base. What? You want me to get a base adapter and put the medium base to a mogul? And it's the worst thing I've ever heard. So that's one example. I've got a lot of them, but maybe I'll rattle them down. Then we'll
them down, man. Rattle them down.
Yeah. Okay, I've got one that LED corn cobs. Where's the most common place you use them, Mike?
Outdoor lighting.
Okay.
Yeah.
Exactly. And the rebate stipulation is it must be an indoor HID. Waste of time there.
Yep.
Higher watt use, the higher the wattage use, the more rebate you get. I know that it depends. They're saying you replace this, but it's like on a 2x4 flat panel, for example.
Mm-hmm.
If it's over 40 watts, you get a higher rebate than if it's 30 watts. You don't need to put a 40 watt in, but you're making me because I get a $10 higher rebate. Okay,
yeah, the other thing,
smart.
Do you know how many 400 watt HPS wall packs there are in Ontario? Way more than you thought there was, buddy. Way more.
Right. And I mean, it's things like that. And then it's, the DLC rating for the application of the fixture. There's pole lights that have a floodlight on them, and they want a flood. The flood doesn't have a rebate, but the area light does. So you want me to put an area light in place of a flood to make it look like the flood, even though it's not designed to do that, to get the rebate? No. I'm going to keep rattling, then you're going to talk. Parking garage fixture. Yeah. I've had that. Like a lot of people just like a nice strip fixture or vapor tight or something, but it's not rated as a parking garage, so it doesn't get the rebate.
And that's the best way to light up a parking garage.
Absolutely, long and skinny.
Yeah, for sure.
And LED tubes. If it's over 18 watts, you get no rebate. So 18.5 doesn't qualify, but 18 and under does. Cooler doors. Most cooler doors have LED tube or have fluorescent tubes in them. There are no LED tubes for just about every fluorescent tube. If you don't do the LED rated cooler door fixture that costs 30 times more, you don't get a rebate. So it's cheaper to get no rebate and do a tube than it is to do that. I've had an an A21 not qualify because it's not an A19. I keep going, but what do you guys? What's going on?
Before we throw it over to them, I want to say one thing. The other thing that's really pissing me off in Ontario is the use of the recycling certificate as proof of the number of fixtures that was in the job. That's what they've started in Ontario now. So I run a lamp recycling company, and if the amount of lamps on the recycling certificate doesn't equal the exact amount of lamps that should have been taken out of the facility, they don't approve the project. Okay, you're an idiot if you think that recycling companies are counting every single lamp that they recycle. That doesn't happen. Nobody does it. They all weigh it. The second thing is, just because you have 1,000 lamps in a facility, Greg, doesn't mean that you're going to take out 1,000. They're going to get broken. Some are not in the fixture. Sometimes the whole case got knocked over by the apprentice and smashed, and you have to sweep it up and throw it in the garbage. And to use the recycling certificate as evidence of the exact amount of lamps that came out of a building is totally ridiculous. Is to demonstrate a naivety that is beyond belief, actually. So, why is this happening, Juan Carlos?
Because you're in Canada. That's going to be my answer. You crazy Canadians. I'll start off with your recycling example. I have not heard of that in any programs I've worked in. But I'm not doing any current work in Ontario, so I can't comment on that. That does seem ridiculous. But Greg, all of your examples are ridiculous too. Every one of them is ridiculous. Ford lighting designers, Ford lighting specifiers. The problem is we're not talking about lighting designers or specifiers. We're talking about utilities. And utilities need to be able to say that they've done the due diligence to claim the savings to support the rebates, right? Because again, as we've said a million times, I'd almost say you never listen to our show there, guys, but we've said a million times, the utilities need to be able to prove that they've saved energy, right? So, so that is that.
What they also need, though, is a ride-along program. They need a ride-along program. Utility, like half the problem with this stuff is this show is we're preaching to the choir right now, right? Like I don't think there's maybe the audience base needs to expand to include more utility staff, because everybody who's listening to this, if you work in lighting industry, you're just nodding your head and probably got a couple more examples to add to the list, right? And what there really needs to be for utility staff is a ride-along program where you can mask up or wait till you get your vaccine. But then you need to sign a sheet, a waiver, and you need to get in a truck and you need to drive out with somebody and have them explain to you why this doesn't make sense. And some utility staff people like the benefit of the doubt, but when you were, busting out that list of like all these things, I have seen every single one of those that you talked about, not the recycling one, but I have every one of those that you've talked about. I'm like, yep, I've seen it. Yep. And there's a phrase we're all familiar with, right? Like, if you got a weak stomach, you're not going to like sausage making, right? But the idea is that by the time, even if you're getting some weak sauce Oscar Mayer hot dogs, it's supposed to be palatable, right? You ain't supposed to be getting choked up on the casing. And unfortunately, what you described is some nasty hot dogs getting pushed out that didn't pass QA/QC. You feel me? So I feel like I could break down and tell you where every one of those things went wrong with a good intention to just like totally missing the mark. But like we need a show dedicated to utility people, or we need to set up, it needs to be like swipe right to match utility people with electrical contractor people so they can get some experience. Find your field buddy.
Oh, man. So
yeah, I like that.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
No, Juan, Carlos, your show.
Yeah, I was going to say, I like what John's saying, but again, the ride-along would be fantastic. I have plenty of friends in the utility world who have done ride-alongs with distributors, know their problems, even laugh like you do at these ridiculous stipulations. But it's not just them. They got to take that all the way up to the regulators, sometimes the government, and get it all justified through evaluation, through regulation, through certification. They're dealing with multiple entities, including DLC or Energy Star or whoever. It's just not that simple. There is a solution, which is the custom programs. So if you're going to do a project that's got a lot of stipulations, then you do it in a custom design. But those are the most complicated, the longest to get paid out on, and the most pain in the butt for all of our distributor colleagues. So, it's a give and take. But I agree, we got to do something to help utilities understand that that a lot of these stipulations are just don't make a lot of sense.
I love a nice custom application, brother. There's nothing better for me. Like, you start cooking it up. You're like, okay, what can we really do in this building to save a lot of energy? Right? And so, like, for example, I had a client, and what they had was they had all these metal halides everywhere, and then they had these above, it was a huge factory. They make screws. They make like actual screws that you like packs of 100,000, like millions of screws a day. And they had all these metal halide, 1,000 watt, 400 watt here, 1,000 over here. You know what I'm talking about, Greg. And then above that was like an older HO system, T12HO, that was continuously roll mounted it across the whole factory. That was all burned out. Okay, and then they had all these halides everywhere, 400 here, 1,000 here, then a 400, then 1,000, then an HPS. It's out of the blue, one HPS, right? And the place was 60 years old. And so what we did was we took out all the halides, and then we retrofitted every other 8-foot fixture to T5HO. This was like 2012, 4-lamp T5HO. And it friggin' was a monster rebate application. Like the rebate was like 3 times the cost of the project. That's how crazy it was. So we went through this custom application, and then they had to come and have a look, and they know all those lights are burned out, but it didn't matter because so they took those off, and it took 100,000 off the rebate because I had applied for every single one of those 8-foot HO fixtures that was burned out, but still connected, right? So then they came in, but that was a custom application, and it was amazing. So I love a good custom application. It's fun. It makes you think about the system of the building. If you have access to more money.
Why did you count those fixtures if they were burnt out?
Because it's their problem to inspect, not mine. Those fixtures are there.
Sauce, man. That's weak. That's not acting with good intent.
They still have lamps in them. They still had lamps in them. They still had lamps in them.
It don't matter. I see this all the time, and I'm just sharing it. All you're doing for all the complaining that people do about the system and the utilities and backing it up, what you just said right there is a chief example of not acting in good. If the fixture ain't on and it hasn't been on in 20 years, I'm not telling you. I'm telling everybody who's listening, don't count it. Just save yourself and the utility some time.
I disagree with you. I disagree with you completely, 100% completely. And here's why. That fixture is wired. It has a ballast in it. It has tubes in it. It's there. It's not disconnected. It's there. If they want to derate it or remove it or do whatever they want in their custom app when they have to come inspect, which is what they did. They derated it. They didn't eliminate it. They said, you know what? We see value in this because we want this technology out of this building permanently as well. So as long as you remove the fixture, or you disable that fixture in the middle so it can never be wired again, that's worth 10% to us or 20%, but not 100%.
I agree with that. That's where I'm going with that. Decommissioning is different than counting something that doesn't work. That's what I'm saying.
Right, but in a custom app, you're there with them discussing what the rebate is worth. It's when you're in these prescriptive apps that are so open to fraud like that. That's where it's like when you're there with the engineer and you're discussing the value of permanently disabling that equipment, that's totally fair. So I love custom. I don't love cheating. I never cheat, John.
The problem, I like the custom approach is always better, but just remember that the utility is paying full freight for an engineer to be there on all those jobs. So just like keep that in mind. Like we want to have our cake and eat it too. We want the best bang for the buck, and we want as little oversight and paperwork as possible. So I feel like we're understanding the rub here. Like they can't all be custom, and we don't want them to all be custom. But I get the project that you described sounds like a custom winner.
Folks, this has been the first show of 2021 of the Get a Grip on Rebates. What are we going to call it? Get a Grip on Rebates.
Grip on Rebates.
Get a Grip on Rebates. It is sponsored by Technical Consumer Products, Greg, the craziest people in lighting, tcpiinc.com. Check them out. Tons of products. Great stuff. Bye for now.